right, well, how's it going, everybody? So today's live stream, I'm basically just going to be running through like every single product that I can think of, and all of my baseline production stuff. So it's going to be a little faster than normal. I'm just going to kind of crank through things and give you a little bit of an insight into what being a glassblower is like on the day-to-day. Yeah, so I'm going to get started. If you have any questions, shoot them in the chat. So two of the products that I have to make today are going to be made out of this pink tubing that's been sitting around forever. So I get to wipe that down. And we'll pull that off. We're just going to do a point. All right, so the first project we're going to do is going to be a clear honeycomb spoon. So we're going to pull down this point. And basically with these, I pull point, shape the spoon, add a honeycomb to the cap, and we're all set. So these are relatively quick. Once we got our point, we can go ahead and clear the tip off. Add a handle. While that's cooling, we're going to go ahead and start working on heating up with the part of the glass that's going to be our stem. There's going to be 2 Marias in this one, so you got to make sure you pull it nice and long. Much longer than it looks like you should. Let that center. And we're going to put in our first Maria. Make sure there's no cold marks. Your second Maria. Make sure there's no cold marks. And then your mouthpiece. First, you want to push together slightly, let that cool, and then you're going to heat at the base of it and pull down. And that's also a chance for you to straighten everything onto your handle. Then we'll go ahead and take our handle off. Because we've used nothing but clear and we've worked relatively quickly, we don't have to preheat your, like from the base of the Marias up to the top of the piece like we do with some. Pop that open. Oh, there it is. So now we're going to add the color that's going to be our honeycomb. So what I'm doing is basically just going to coil tot a chunk of this color on there. Heat it up, blow it out, add clear, and that's going to be the honeycomb. I'm not 100% what color this is that I'm using, so hopefully it looks good. All right. Now I want to heat that color section, get it nice and melted in, and then blow it out. But I want to do that without getting the clear around it too hot. Clear is less dense than color, so it will blow out first if given the opportunity. We'll take our clear, add all of our clear dots, kind of hobnail the color there. So basically all I'm doing is just center dot, dots all around it, and then the next layer down is doing dots between those dots, and then the next layer down is doing dots between those dots. So you're just kind of throwing large chunks of clear all over this color. All right, so you can see there we got that all hobnailed. Now we're going to melt that in. And then blow it out to get it to be even with everything. And then we're going to gather that all up and make the chamber of our spoon. All right, now we've got that all melted in. So we're going to heat this clear section behind it. We're going to gather that all up, and that is going to be the chamber of our spoon. It's going to be a little bit bigger than normal or thicker than normal, depending on how this all works out. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm giving little puffs of air to basically even everything out and to make sure that it condenses and looks good as it comes down. It's pretty good. Let that center a little. Find the spot of smallest amount of wonk and pop your mouthpiece. Heat up around the hole. You're going to give it a puff as it starts to shrink down to make sure that it stays the right size, because right now it is absolutely huge. Push in your bowl piece. Heat the bottom to find the bottom. Pop the rush. And now we're going to add our hand grips on the side. And then we just melt those in. And that's pretty much the basic My basic honeycomb spoon. Now, the big difference between working at full production speed and just kind of working for the fun of it is you do a lot of maintaining heat. If you work quick enough, your piece will maintain a base heat that allows you to spend less time reheating your piece after each step. So there's a nice honeycomb on the front. It's pretty. Toss it the comb. We'll take it off its handle later. Um, but you want to maintain this kind of base level of heat on your overall piece. That way, rather than having to bring something from 70 degrees up to 1200, you have to bring something that's at 600 degrees up to 1200. And it ends up taking a lot less time. And, you know, time is money when it comes to. Whew, this glass is shady. So these are basic color tubes that I'm going to be working on. My basic color tubes are done with Chinese import glass to start because it's the only way that I can offer them at a reasonable price. But Chinese color tubing generally isn't annealed properly, so it is cracky. Like it very much enjoys exploding on you and is kind of unpleasant to work with. So you have to be a little bit more careful when you're working with Chinese import tubing. And once the piece is finished and you properly anneal it and everything, it doesn't really affect anything. Like I would make a $3,000 pipe out of this. But if all you're doing is making, you know, a $30 spoon, it works fine. You just have to make sure you anneal your pieces when you're done working them. So this one's actually going to be an almost exact copy of. We're using pink tubing instead of clear. I also cut my tube a little bit shorter this time. That last piece was just a little bit large, and I don't want that. The size of these pieces is just slightly smaller. That one was a monster. So, for example, this is the first time I'm bringing this part of this piece all the way up to temperature. Until I'm done, I want to do my best to never let it get all the way down to like 500 degrees or something that's a small amount. So we take it out, we pull our neck or our stem. Now, as soon as this is straight, like as soon as it's not a struggle for me to maintain this thing's straightness, we will start heating up for the Maria. So right now, it's still moving. It's still at temperature, but this gives me a chance to heat the next section that I'm working while the section I just worked is still cooling. So that by the time I'm ready to actually do some manipulating and push that Maria in, the stem has cooled and we're ready to go. And yeah, that only shaves off, 10 seconds, but over the course of an entire day's worth of work, 10 seconds can be $30. And especially if you save those 10 seconds on every single piece that you make and you try to save little bits of time on every single step. So now we got both our Marias in there. Go ahead and get ready to make our mouthpiece. Sometimes your mouthpiece doesn't come out super straight. You can just do a little puff to kind of alleviate that and fix it. So now I'm in the last section where I pull down to define my mouthpiece, and that stem section that I pulled never once got down to a low temperature. It stayed nice and hot and malleable and easy to work with for the entire process. Now, because this is Chinese color, I am going to take a second to slowly heat my way down to the handle, because I don't feel like having this stuff explode on me. And now we'll go ahead and add our color for our second honeycomb. So again, don't let that cool. You want to get it immediately back up to temperature so that you can manipulate it. Those don't always blow out great the first time, so sometimes it behooves you to blow it out, let it sink back in, and blow it out again. Yes, that will increase how long it takes, but you will end up saving time in the long run, because working with this stuff when it's not evenly blown out is more of a pain in the butt than redoing it. So with my clear essentially stays in the flame. It doesn't really, I don't take it, out of the flame, put it back in, out of the flame, put it back in. I keep it in the flame. That way, the second there's enough glass hot for me to place my dot, I can place my dot. I don't have to wait for it to get hot for me to do that. So that's another tiny little thing that you do to save time. So baseline production, I know a lot of people end up with their work, not glass work, but like just work. You break it down by hours, half hours, maybe 15 minutes. A lot of production line stuff is broken down, at least for me, by the minute. So an extra minute on a piece can sometimes reduce the amount of money that you make on that piece fairly drastically as far as a percentage goes. So you really have to kind of be on your A game and concentrating the entire time that you're doing this, so that you don't screw things up and waste time. So, when you're doing something real nice, there's no problem spending an extra hour going through and making sure all the seams are super sexy and making sure everything is incredibly straight and exactly perfect. Because you know, if you're going to sell that piece for $600, then yeah, it warrants the extra time doing that. But at the end of the day, you know, these spoons go for $30 retail in the shops, so I have to make them very quick in order to get, you know, my money's worth out of these as a product. And you know, getting faster is the only way you get a raise. That's pretty much it. The faster you make something, the more money you make per minute on that piece. So when you get better at it, that means you just got a raise because you make more money per hour now. So this is one step you do want to let it cool for a second, because when you pop the hole, if it is hot all around it, the hole will not pop. It'll pop large instead of tiny. And it's important that the bowl hole size is very small. Um, for obvious reasons, that's like the thing that everybody looks for first and foremost. Doesn't matter how nice your piece is, if that bowl hole is too big or too small, it will just not sell. And this is another aspect of Chinese tubing that sucks because it doesn't want to condense in on itself. It likes to widen instead of shrink. So it can be a pain in the butt to get it to shrink down properly. So yeah, for example, because this has taken me this long, this piece is probably going to make me like 10 to 15% less money, just based on one tiny little error in the actual creation of the piece. Now I put on the bottom. Pop the rush hole. And because this is a pink pipe, I don't have any transparent pink color. So I'm using an opaque pink for the holes down the side, or balls down the side, the grips. I'll get there eventually. There you have that. You can see the honeycomb on the front. All right, so next we're going to do same structure, totally different coloring style. So the only big difference between what I normally do and what I'm doing now is just that when I'm normally working on production, I will do one piece. So I will have either I'll be doing clear honeycombs, or I'll be doing frit whatevers, or I'll be doing one specific piece, and I spend the entire day pretty much just making one of those over and over. But I figured that would not be super exciting to watch. So instead, I'm doing one of everything that I normally make. So this is going to be an octopus pipe. So first I wanted to pull the octopus legs, or what's going to be the legs. Set that aside. We'll pull our point. My previous point was not crazy straight, so this one's a little wonky. It's okay, I can fix that later. So now we're going to open this up. Well, first we're going to clean it up, but then we're going to pop it open. The other big trick to this is to know what your next step is before you have to do it. So I'm going to pour frit to the inside, both colors. Knowing what your next step is before you have to do it eliminates that time where you have to think about it. And that's very important in how long it takes in the end. I put a little bit too much of this in there. That's not a big deal, though. This is a color I can very easily use again. Color combination I can very easily use again. But yeah, you want to, like, I already know that after I'm done with this, and I'm going to pour it out, I'm going to blow it out, and then I'm going to seal that, and I'm going to need my 6mm rod ready to go so that I can add a handle and pull down the stem of the spoon. So I'm making sure while all I'm doing right now, I'm just heating stuff. I don't actually have to pay attention to it per se. I mean, you do, but not like constant active attention. And so while I'm doing that, I'm going to make sure that all the stuff that I need for my next step or two is right here. It's ready to go. So I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do anything. So all you're doing here is just trying to completely fill the inside of this with color. Make sure it's all one uniform color. I always blow it out because you will end up getting little bits of frit stuck in your handle. And yeah, I mean, it's not going to, it shouldn't mess up your piece or anything, but there's times I've gotten frit in my mouth and other levels of unpleasantness that you just don't want to deal with. Plus, if you melt everything in and then blow into it, and that frit dislodges and goes into your piece, then you have a section of frit that's not fully melted in, which, again, probably won't destroy the piece, but isn't good. So you try to avoid letting those things occur. So now we got that closed. We're going to go ahead and add our handle. And then we're going to get to heating so we can pull down our stem. Now, in this particular project, I want to spend an extra bit of time ensuring that my pieces are completely melted in. When you're working with frit, a lot of times it won't melt in completely. I mean, it looks melted in and it's not. There's all kinds of texture on the inside, and especially because we did the frit on the inside of this piece instead of on the outside, you're not really going to be able to see when it's all the way melted in. And all that clear that's around it all has to melt first before that color will really start doing anything. So it behooves you to really spend some extra time, an extra couple minutes, letting the heat just soak in. Just keep rotating, keep heating, and let that frit really melt in so that it doesn't have texture later on in the piece and potentially cause cracking issues. Like if you don't melt it in enough, it absolutely will crack. Like that's a thing. All right, so now we got that pretty well soaked, pretty well melted. We're gonna pull our neck down, our stem. All right, pretty awesome. So this one only gets one Maria. You always want to do these things as quickly as possible, but at the same time, you need to recognize when you have to wait and when you need to let things even out, when you need to let your heat base even out, when you need to not rush it. So it's a delicate balance between trying to do everything as quickly as possible and also making sure that you do everything very evenly so that your steps later on are easier and thus take less time. Sometimes slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Now we're going to make our mouthpiece. And then heat below our mouthpiece to melt that all down. Now on this piece, because you are working with frit, especially towards my left handle, my frit has not been melted at all. It's completely just sticking. So you absolutely do need to start your heat base at the Maria and expand it towards the end slowly. Um, Otherwise, these pieces absolutely will crack. I've even had them crack when I'm trying to do it this way. So take your time in this step. Be careful. It'll be worth it in the end. And once the first section that you're heating gets orange, getting that orange to go down to the handle all the way is not super difficult. It doesn't take that long. But if the piece cracks, even if you try to fix it, because you're doing a full color of frit, a lot of time you'll end up with these like weird clear lines where you can kind of see there's a gap in the color. And that happens from it not sealing exactly the same way as it was originally. So I tried to rush it a little bit too much. We got a little bit of a crack. So by going back to where the heat base already is hot and slowly moving towards that crack actually sealed on its own without me having to force it closed, and that will make sure that I don't have any little clear lines that look weird. I'll pull off the handle and make sure you take that big chunk of weirdness at the end with it. And now it's the same thing. You want to reheat this piece and make sure that you get that frit incredibly melted in, and then we'll blow it into a basic bowl. at the same time getting out all the stuff that I need for the next step in the process. All right, that's pretty melted in, looking good. Nice and smooth, blow into it. That's a pretty good size. Let that cool for a second. Now we'll pop our hole. Got our bowl pushed in. Define our bottom. So you can see with the way that this all works, there's no real downtime. Anytime your piece is going to need a couple seconds to cool, that's when you do your prep and get your stuff together for your next piece. That way, or take a drink, or do whatever. That way, as long as you're blowing glass, you are absolutely not wasting any time whatsoever. Streamlining the process is what makes the whole thing profitable. I've always said the ultimate form of lazy is efficient, and I am super lazy, so I want to get these done as efficiently as possible. That way I'm making as much per hour as I possibly can. So now we're going to add the octopus. This piece is not going to get hand grips because we're putting the octopus on. So we're going to take our double amber purple and put a nice big glob on there. We're going to melt that down, make sure it's nice and domed. It's pretty good. We're going to add the legs. You want to make sure the legs squiggle around and look super octopusy. You also have to be careful. Fitting 8 legs is actually a little difficult. It's just a lot of legs. So you have to be careful with your spacing to make sure they all have plenty of room for you to put them on. So you can see the legs, kind of, a little bit. So now I want to heat all of those legs. This is going to better adhere them to the actual piece, as well as better adhering them to the body of the octopus. And then I usually go around the body with a small flame just to make sure that those legs actually melt in. Because if they look detached, it looks stupid. So now we're going to add the eyes. I do super cartoony eyes on mine. These are designed to be cute. Big ball of white. Another big ball of white. Just take a quick second, melt those down a little bit. Take the black dot, black dot. Melt them in. Yeah, kind of hard to see now. But as always, all of these products will be up on my Facebook page, and they will also be on my Instagram. So you can get like really good photos of all of them when they're done. But you can kind of see cute little octopus. All right, so now we're going to do similar structure. Most of my spoons are a fairly similar structure. I like it. I've been doing them for a long time, and that seems to be the structure that sells. So that's kind of what I do. So now we're going to use 3 colors of frit instead of 2. Use some dark multi. I haven't gotten to play with that yet. Okay. So now we're going to take our clear tube. There's not really enough for a reasonable point, so I'm just going to pull it off the end and then open it up. This one's going to be just a little bit larger of a segment that I want to work with because when you do frit, it is difficult to put Marias in. It actually takes up a larger percentage of your pull than doing it with clear or color tubing or anything. So I want to make sure that my piece is a little bit larger so that my so that pushing 2 Marias in it, I'll still end up with a good size stem. Don't put something that big in the water. All right, so this time, rather than mix all the colors together, I'm going to do them in individual layers. We're going to start with the dark multi. And we're going to focus our heat just on this bottom section, right where where it starts to taper. That's where we want our dark multi to be. Starting to stick, looking good. Straighten everything out, and then pour the rest back into the tin. And then blow. Make sure your tube is still straight. Grab the next color, which is going to be purple luster. Purple luster. Now at this stage, you can't pour it back into the tray because it'll be contaminated with dark multi that has popped off. So you want to use a little bit less to make sure that you don't overuse it, because you can always put more in, but you don't want to waste what's in there already. Same process, heat that up. Try to get as much of it as you can, and then pour the rest into your water, and then blow. Let it cool for just 1 second, and then we'll pour our next color, which is going to be Irid, which is a super nice semi-transparent blue. Transparent blue. It's not semi-transparent. Now this time, we're going to focus on the end of the tube, not right next to where everything else is. That way, as I angle it and things start moving forward, they will stick to the end of the tube, and they won't go flying out of the piece. Theoretically. When I get on top of my merchandise game, I'm just going to get a shirt that has a mini sitting here and just says theoretically over the top. That's going to be my thing. All right, so now you've got 3 distinct layers of frit color. So we're going to close this. So you got to blow your graphite and your bench off a little bit. Frit is like sand. It's coarse and it's hard and it gets everywhere. But so we want to make sure your graphite's always clear for when you use it, so you don't accidentally attach some random bit of frit to the bottom of your piece when you're pressing the back in or anything stupid like that. Add your handle. Go down to the bottom and start heating. You want to get all of the dark multi, so that first color that you put in there, we want to make sure all of that is part of the stem. And then we also want to make sure that part of the stem includes some of that purple luster, so that when you do your Marias later on in the process, with any luck, some of them will have some purple luster in there, and it ends up looking really nice. Again, take your time. Make sure you soak your heat in. Get that frit nice and melted in. As a wholesale artist, you end up having a lot of different considerations than as a retail artist. As a retail artist, you want to make sure pieces, like the frit combinations, are always the coolest thing in the world. And you want to make sure that it has all these nice little features so that when someone's looking for it, they'll see that piece and think, oh yeah, that's the one piece I want. But when you're a wholesale artist like I am, and you're selling to headshops and online Instagram sellers and stuff, they care a lot less about what each individual piece's color pattern and style and stuff is. They care more about, first, is the structure good? Do you have everything is all the for frit pieces, are all the frit melted in? Is everything straight? Is the bowl hole the right size? These are the considerations that go above and beyond for them. So you have to make sure that every single piece has those consistencies, whereas the actual color and stuff comes in as a little bit less important. So I can make these in 60 different color combinations, and some of those color combinations are combinations that even I'm just like, well, that doesn't look great. But as long as the actual structure of the piece is good, most of the time you'll take it in and they don't care, because they have more foot traffic than I do. They can afford to wait for the one guy that's going to come in that's going to love that weird color combination, because they can have 700 people that come in a day. looking for glass. So I prefer working wholesale. I like knowing that as long as I get my structures down and as long as this piece is technically awesome, that aesthetically it's a little bit less important from a sales standpoint. I'm going to go ahead and put our second Maria. Now it looks like we got our first Maria is all purple luster, and our second Maria is half purple luster and half of the dark multi, which is what you really want. It looks nice. It looks cool when the Maria is like split in half. Now I got those in. We'll go ahead and add our mouthpiece. And you can see how even though I pulled down like a pretty long stem, in the end, your piece is actually very short. And that's just because Frit Marias take up a lot of distance. Take up a lot of space. And they're thicker too. What it is that the glass you're working with, once you add that frit and melt it all in, it's thick. It's very, very thick tubing. So when you make a Maria, it's real thick and it uses a lot of glass and shortens everything up. But you don't really want to thin it out either, because that's part of the appeal of these pieces, is that they are nice and chunky. Okay. Now we're going to start at the Marias and move our way towards the handle. Make sure you do it nice and slow so that you don't accidentally cause your piece to crack, same as the last one. All right. Now we just got to melt that in, form the home. We're all set with this one. And we have one more spoon, and then we are going to be working on some hitters for a minute. And after that, carb caps? Bubble caps? Yeah, bubble caps. So as always, take your time, let that frit really soak in, and make sure that your piece has no texture in it. Then we'll take it out and blow into it. That is pretty good. Let it cool for a sec. Find your bowl hole spot. So that bolt hole actually was crazy small. So I actually want to widen it a little bit so that I can heat around it and then shrink it down again. Um, that way I can push my bowl in one smooth motion rather than having to do it in two motions, which again saves you 5 seconds. So this gets slightly different grips. There's no front pattern, so there's nothing to like ring with dots the way I do with my frit and honeycomb stuff. So, or with my wigwag and honeycomb stuff. So for this, I always just put 3 dots on these. And there we have that one. So you can see I've been working for an hour and 5 minutes, and we already got 4 spoons made and ready to go. So working efficiently is really kind of the name of the game. I'm gonna do. I got one more spoon to make. We're gonna do a pink wigwag window spoon, and then I'm going to move down to hitters. We've got 3 different kinds of hitters to make. I don't think I have the stuff already pulled for those, so we'll have to pull down some tube and make some wigwags and stuff. Clean this up, add a handle. And get to working on our stem. Now try to do a significantly better bowl hole on this one, which I think is basically going to entail letting it cool more. Different glass needs to be cool, like different temperatures to get it to do exactly what you want. And it's a lot of remembering what different colors are like. So like when I do minis, a lot of times when I do my full colored minis, I kind of know what each individual tube color is like. So certain tube colors are incredibly dense, and they take a little extra heat to get it to do anything. Anything like Millennium Moss and blacks are like that. Sometimes the blues are like that. But then you have other colors like pomegranate or red Elvis strike, things like that are actually not dense at all. They're incredibly fluid, and so you have to handle them a little bit differently to ensure that you get the same product. Which means that you got to heat them a little bit differently, or you have to pull them slightly differently at a different spot in the process. You just kind of gotta tweak your cycles a little bit to compensate for whatever tube you're using. And the Chinese tube is no different. It is even worse for the most part because it doesn't like to do things. Like I don't really know how to explain it other than that. Like Chinese white tubing cracks like crazy. It's impossible to like. It's difficult to get it preheated properly to where it won't crack on you. Black, when you blow it out, it doesn't really like to blow out evenly. Like if you're not careful, it'll blow out all kind of wonky and look terrible and be hard to work with. The blue's good. Like their blue is actually pretty awesome. And to be fair, their pink is actually pretty awesome too. But it does move a little bit differently, and I have to remember I have to let it cool for a longer period of time before I go to pop my bowl hole. Otherwise, that bowl hole will be huge, which is not what I want. Got that mouthpiece looking good. Pull this down. This second pull on the mouthpiece is actually far more important than it looks. This is when you straighten your whole piece, so that when you blow your actual chamber, you're not trying to do it slightly off center. And so that's the main part of why you pull that down. It also makes it so that like your mouthpiece looks better, or it's just easier to make it look good. But the main thing, at least for me, is that you are straightening your whole piece. Now we'll take off our handle and add our wigwag. You don't want the hole to be as large on the wigwag as you did on the honeycomb. Mainly because when you pop the hole for the honeycomb, you have to wrap color around it. And if you accidentally, if the hole's too small, there's the potential of you accidentally closing it too quickly with your color, and then it's pure hell to try to fix that. Whereas with a wigwag, you want it to be that big. Whatever the size of the actual wigwag hole, you just want it to match up. We'll attach our wigwag and then go ahead and even everything out and then blow our bowl, chamber, whatever. One more puff should even everything out. And now we start gathering up the rest of this tube to make our bowl. That puff in the middle is not actually to thin it out and blow it out. It's more just to straighten it. As you're gathering things up, a lot of times they won't gather up super evenly. They'll kind of gather up in a weird shape. And by puffing it out, you're reshaping it. Pretty good. Go ahead and let that cool for a good long time. All right, now that it's pretty much cooled down, we'll go ahead and pop our hole. Much better. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Good. Go ahead and add our bottom. So one of my good friends, Bobby Delaney, he's a graphic designer, graphic artist. Check him out at BD3 Industries on Facebook. And BD3 Industry or illustrations, BD3 Illustrations on both Instagram and Facebook. But we often have a discussion because he can erase things in his art form. Glass, you don't erase stuff. Like you don't fix things in the same way. Like you can fix stuff sometimes, but you're also inputting so much more than your time. So with graphic design especially, but 2D art generally, if you're spending, if you go back and spend an extra hour fixing something, you spent an hour fixing something and like a nickel in materials. But if I go back and spend an hour fixing something in glass, I spent $20 in materials, messing around. Well, probably not $20, but significantly more than like a nickel. So it doesn't even necessarily behoove you to fix things. A lot of times, like if you can fix it real quick, fix it, obviously. But if it's going to be one hell of a project to fix something, a lot of times you'll just finish the piece, toss it aside, and start over and try again next time. So there's the constant like discussion over whether it's better to be able to fix things and then potentially get stuck in the trap of nothing being perfect enough and you just fix things indefinitely, or mine, where I just have to remake the same piece over and over and over and over and over and over and over if I keep messing it up. So when it comes to production work specifically, you don't want to be fixing stuff. That's not the goal. You need to get everything right on the first try as you go through it, and not just the first try, but every try. If I spend an entire day and I make 30 spoons, I need all 30 of those spoons to look good, function properly, and be able to sell well. So it's a fairly unforgiving way of doing things, but you get used to it, I guess. All right, so I got to pull down some tube real quick. I have one wigwag for one of the projects that I'm working on. One of the hitters that I'm going to do next, but I need others. All right, so I heated up the tip of this tube. I stuck it in the kiln for a little while, so it's ready to go. I'm going to add a handle, and then we're going to pull a reasonably small section. Like it's not going to be huge of tubing off the end here. So the first thing we're going to do is a two-piece wigwag hitter. They're some of my fanciest hitters. I don't make a lot of hitters. Just on a personal level, I'm not a huge fan of them. I also never leave my property, never travel anywhere, and never have to be discreet. So kind of a lot of what hitters are absolutely fantastic at, I don't require. But that being said, I do make them because, I'm a production artist and I do this for a living, so I make a lot of stuff. But I generally have three basic hitter designs. I've got a Frit hitter, which is obviously the cheapest. I've got a Dragon hitter, which I will show you how I make today, which are my favorite, but don't sell as well as I want them to. And then I have my super fancy two-piece wigwag hitters, which I will be making one on first. All right, set that tube aside. And now this one I want to pull down. Now this is going to end up being the basis of both the final wigwag for my two-piece wigwag hitter, but also it's going to be the basis for my Dragon. So those two things require two different thicknesses of tube. Don't require, but it's easier if I have two different thicknesses of tube. So I'm going to try to pull the left-hand side of this tube out skinnier than the right-hand side so that I can use the skinny section to make my little wigwag that I need for my next project, and then I can set my thicker section aside, and when we get to the Dragon hitter, I can make it then. Just pulling this down. Try to pull it down as evenly as you can. All right, sweet. So you can see on the left there, I've got that little thin section, and then on the right, from like here over, it is much thicker. Hey, JJ. Thanks for joining us. I mean, I guess by us I mean me, but I'm close enough to having multiple personality disorder. I can call me and us. All right, so now we're going to do our little wigwag. I'm going to turn my flame down. So this is going to be super small. This basically is just going to be the cup, the part where you actually put your weed in the hitter. The large one that I have in the kiln already is the one that ends up being the base of the entire piece for the most part. So we're just going to do 3 little zigzags. And then we'll pull it down and turn into a switch ball. You can see, nice and small. Now you want to pluck this out to a very, 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 very thin point. Otherwise, it kind of bunches up at the end of your wigwag and creates the termination point, ends up being all smudged. And since the termination point is like literally half of what you see on the piece, you want to make sure that those look really good. Puff it out, condense it down, puff it out again, and we're all set. Now we pop a hole in the side. And we'll melt it off the main rod. Set it aside. Pluck this side out too. Got to make sure both of your terminations are great and not throw your glass while you're doing it. Now I want to change the axis because I have to tear away the edge of my wigwag, same way as I do anytime we do wigwag work. Just like that. Set that in the kiln. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and combine those and make our piece. Handle's a little small. Hopefully it won't burn too bad. But I'm running low on handles. I got some more showing up on Monday. So we grab our nice big wigwag. Attach that to our handle. And then we just want to shape it out, condense it, blow into it, all that good stuff to get it to be nice and even. And then we will attach the incredibly tiny one that we just did to the end of it. Best way to make sure these things get super even is really to condense them way down. The more condensed they are, the thicker everything is, and the more even the pieces will tend to be. All right. So now we'll pop a hole. Don't forget to clean it up. And then we just want to even this all out. Make sure those two pieces are one piece. All right, so now we're going to pull this down. There is no like bowl piece on this, so we want to pull the whole thing down into one even straight tube. Now you're going to have to remember that over by the left here, it's going to naturally be a little bit harder to pull. So it's okay to spend a second focusing a pin flame in that general spot and then going back to heating the entire piece. And the evenness of this pull is more important than the length. So there we go. Not bad. Gonna straighten out a couple things. All right. So now we'll grab our I don't know what this thing is called. My graphite V. You can see it's got a V. So now I'm going to heat that spot right where the two connect. And that's where I want to cut down on the V, and that's going to be what makes the actual bowl hole. So you want to get as close as is physically possible to complete now. However, you can't see it really. So later on in the process, there is a stage where you can fix this if the hole is too big or too small. So that's got that nice cinch now. Now we'll go ahead and push in a Maria. We want to push the Maria in right at the edge of where that cinch exists, is made. Make sure you get rid of any cold marks. And now make your mouthpiece. The mouthpiece does not need to be huge. This is a very small piece. Very small pipe. You want to make sure when you're pulling down at the end here, if your wigwag is a little thin, which it can end up being right next to where you attached it. That wigwag that I made was actually pretty large. So when I attached it at the bottom there, as I was evening it out, the spot right next to the clear didn't really even out a whole lot. So you can take a little extra time melting things in, and when you pull down the mouthpiece to get that to work a little bit better. So now we want to heat that, what's going to be our bowl piece. You want to hold it at a downward angle and then blow into it, and that will give it the shape that you're looking for. Just like that. Now we will pop open the bowl hole. I love that thing when I need it, but it's in the way all the times that I don't. Normally this is when I would use my 2mm graphite reamer, but I broke it last stream and I haven't replaced it yet. Okay, so the size of the hole is actually good. So now what I'm going to do is I want to heat this up, and I'm going to go in and press it against the angle marker, and that's going to open it up into a nice bowl shape. Just like that. So this is a hitter with like a sizable bowl. It's not tiny. Okay. And so then we're going to stick just a clear glob on the side. The main purpose of this is so that if you set the piece down, it doesn't roll. This piece has nothing that's flat on it at all. So when you set this piece down prior to putting this glob of clear on there, it can just roll and roll and roll and roll and roll and it'll roll off tables or whatever. So to make sure that it doesn't do that, I just add a little glob of clear on the outside of the bowl. And it looks nice, but more importantly, if it starts to roll, that will stop it from doing that. So a little bit of function in my form. Thank you. All right, so next we're going to do the dragon pipe. These are actually my favorite hitters to make. I don't really like making hitters, but these I very much enjoy. So, yeah, this can go away. All right, so we're going to start off by making a bunch of wigwag sections. This is going to be a much larger wigwag section, and I'm not actually going to turn it into a switch ball. It just kind of stays as that general like look. You don't actually want this to be thin. Having it a little thicker makes the rest of the process a little easier later on. I know this is far from the most exciting thing to watch, but actually, normally I try to get my prep work done before I come on stream, so you guys don't have to watch me do the boring, tedious crap. But this piece actually doesn't. This isn't just prep. It's not something I can do ahead of time. I'll be actually making the dragon directly off this tube. Okay, we'll do one more, and then we'll go ahead and shape it. All right, so now we got our wigwagged section of color. So now we're going to heat a section kind of in the middle. I'm going to heat that up and blow it out slightly. That is going to be our dragon's head. I'm then going to melt this down and pull where his neck is going to be. And the neck is what leads to the bowl. So we define the neck. Now we're going to pull down his snoot. So we heat the entire rest of the wigwag section in addition to the very front of that first thing that we blew out. And we want to pull this all down. Just like that. And it already kind of has what's going to end up being the mouthpiece like built in, so I'm just going to kind of pull this down to create the bottom of the mouthpiece. All right, so now that's the actual shape. I know it doesn't look like a dragon right now, but it will. Trust me. So now we'll take our handle off. And now we start adding dots. Take our clear, and you're going to add 2 dots that are going to work as the nose. Just like that. Then you do 3 dots going up the snout. That is going to be like the little nasal spines. Like that. Now we're going to add the eyes. Now these are also most of my animal-ish things are all designed to be cute, so I give him big googly eyes. So he's going to have big googly eyes. That's where the eyes are going to go. Now we're going to take our 4mm clear rod, and we're actually going to draw around the eyes to give him kind of a defined facial structure. We'll do it around each eye. You can see like that. Kinda. So now, first we take our tungsten pick. We're going to heat the seam right in between their eyes. I'm going to pull that down a little. And then melt it in. I want to melt the edge side of each of those little termination points on his facial ridges. Then we're going to go down and start with the closest to the little dot that's closest, and just whoop, and pinch it with the tweezers. Go to the next one, pinch it with the tweezers. Last one, pinch it with the tweezers. Take our tungsten pick, heat one nostril, poke a hole, heat the other nostril, poke a hole. So now you can kind of see the structures of the piece. Now I gotta find my black. There it is. Add my little dots for the eyeballs. And then heat the eyes to make sure that they melt in and look like eyes. Looking good, looking good. All right, so now we're going to heat from the neck up. I want to make sure I take a second to preheat all this because I haven't worked on this part of the piece in a long time. I don't want to explode it because I can't really fix it at this stage. We're going to heat this up, and this is going to end up being the bowl. Same thing as we do on every other bowl. Get it nice and hot. Angle it up. Blow in. I'm going to do that again. Now I get my itsy weetsy teeny weeny little bowl push. Let it cool for a second, and then pop open the bowl hole. Got to make sure that bowl hole is the correct size. If it's too big, you do have to shrink it down. I'm going to do that in two stages. That way I can solidify the hole easier and then use the little push to actually get the bowl that I'm looking for. So there's the bowl. Just like that. And here's the dragon. Yeah, good stuff. Set him in the kiln. Okay, I got to grab some water and go to the bathroom. I'll be back in like a minute and a half. All right. So now we're going to do a frit hitter. These are probably the simultaneously the easiest and your most irritating kind of hitters to try to make. Yeah, end of statement. They're just annoying. Okay. So I already have a blank. This is far too large for a hitter, so I'm actually just going to tear off the top. Now, because these are so small, and also because I'm lazy, um, I'm going to put both the colors in at the same time. We're going to use dark multi and purple luster. Whoa! Oh, we got a little bit too much frit in there, but that's not the end of the world. This means I'm going to waste some. So we start by heating at the edge, the rim, so that none of the glass gets out easily. And then we're going to move our way down to the stem. Got it all nice and gathered up. Pour the rest into your bucket. And then blow, straighten, and close. Handle up. And heat and melt. This is very similar to the spoons in that you need to make sure that your entire section is crazy hot and that all of your frit is completely melted in. Once it's all melted in, pull it down. Just like the last one, you want to pull this down into one fully even tube. Like that. Now I'm going to take this handle off and actually reattach a new handle. Mainly because this handle's not like crazy straight. I would prefer that it was a little bit more on center. So I'm going to make it a little bit more on center. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to melt down where the actual bowl hole is. Unlike the first project where we used the V-Marver to do this. With this project, I'm actually just going to heat the exact same spot for a while, and the glass will condense in that spot till it is a hole that is the correct size. The downside to this way of doing things is you can't really see how small the hole is that you're creating, and it needs to be the correct size for this to work. Like it can't be too big or too small. So you really have to get used to, like, this is what this looks like when it's at the correct size. I think this is the correct size. It may be ending up being a little too big. If it is, that sucks. I will use the V-Marver to fix it. Now we're going to go down and make our mouthpiece. It's like that. Heat it down at the bottom and pull. Now we're going to open this up, see if the bowl hole is the correct size. I mean, we're not opening this up so you can see if the bowl hole is the correct size. That's the next step in the process. But it's when you get to see if you did that right or not. Oh, how I wish I had my 2mm reamer. So normally I want to do that with a graphite reamer. I kind of hate doing it with this tungsten pick, but my new reamer's not here yet. Awesome. Okay, so it's too small rather than too big. So we're going to open up, we're going to flare open the end here, and then kind of use the heat and the pick to get it up to a good size. So that's flaring open the actual bowl. And now I'm going to use the pick and heat to widen the hole that I've got here. Hopefully without shifting the bowl at all. There we go. Did change the bowl shape slightly, so I'm going to go ahead and try to fix that. There we go. that in the kiln. All right. So the kiln's completely full. So I'm going to go ahead and take a bunch of these pieces off the tube and throw them in the back. If I can find my grabbers. There they are. And so this is also what I do whenever I'm working production. I fill the kiln and then take everything off the blow tube. And then fill the kiln and then off the blow tube. And you just keep doing that rotation. And this is always just a rapid fire of just taking everything off, pop open the hole, set it in the kiln. You just kind of run down the whole line and do all the pieces that you've made so far. I mean, they all basically come off the tube the same way. So the reason I do this is it gives everything a chance to heat back up to be evenly heated. There's no chance of things cracking at this stage. Glass has this lovely habit of cracking at the very end of whatever it is that you're doing. So I don't know if you can see it a little bit better now, but there's the octopus. Super cute. Got shit falling out the kiln. Whoa. Okay. Okay, so next and probably final project for today, we are going to do one of my kind of basic banger hangers. Yeah, end of story. We're going to do one of those. All right, we're going to start by making the neck. So these are two-piece. Is a two-piece pipe, which means that I'm going to be making the neck, and then I'm going to be making the chamber separately, and then attaching the two. So the neck gets made first and then set aside. The first thing I'm going to do is push in 2 Marias, just like it was the neck of a spoon. I want to make sure that the first Maria is well, not significantly, but definitely larger than the second, which just means spending more time pushing it in. So we get a larger Maria. So dichroic glass, you can kind of see how it shimmers like that. That is a metal film that's attached to one side of the glass, and it ends up being like a super shiny, sparkly, metallic look to it. And that is what dichroic glass is. And you can use it either in panels like that, which I've done for my dichroic vortex marbles, and you can also use it in frit by crushing it and putting on the inside of tube. I haven't done that yet, mainly because I haven't worked with dichro a whole ton. But those are definitely the two most prominent ways that you end up using dichro. So anytime you see a piece of glass that has like this crazy metallic sparkle to it, that's dichro. So now we've done both the discs and the mouthpiece. Now we'll take our handle off and open up the bottom and flare it slightly, very slightly. All right, so we got our neck piece. We'll go ahead and set that aside. Now we're going to do our chamber. During the process of making the chamber, actually, you have to switch axes, and I need a tube for that. So we're going to open up a tube, have that nice and ready so I don't have to do it in the middle of the piece. Set that aside. Once again, not exactly the right size to pull a tube. It's a little bit larger than I would like to have to waste, but I'm going to set that aside. I may use it for something else later. Got that. Now we'll pop this open and add our wigwag. Now that that's attached, we're going to go ahead and even it all out. Probably, if I'm being totally honest. Chris asked, will all that finger turning make you arthritic? So I don't know, because it's not exactly a widespread issue in our industry. Like Bob Snodgrass, dude's old as hell, and he's still blowing glass just fine. No real issues. And then I've met people who are in their late 30s who have been blowing glass for 10 years and are arthritic. So it feels, as the guy that does this all the time, it genuinely feels like it is going to cause arthritis later on down the line. But I haven't seen anything like within the industry that's like a thing, that's something that actually happens regularly. So I don't know. My tentative belief is that, yeah, by the time I'm 60, my hands are going to suck, but I don't know if that's true. To be totally honest, the bigger issue for me is the standing. I'm literally just standing in one place all day, every day. So I have minor back issues because of that. And it just, there's just issues that arise. So what I'm trying to do right now, I want to gather up a really big chunk of this, and I want to blow a nice, large kind of chamber piece for this. Yes, there are. Chris asks, are there chairs and stuff that you can do this ergonomically? There absolutely are. And there are absolutely a lot of glass blowers that use them. I, for the life of me, cannot blow glass sitting down. Something about being seated, it bugs me. I don't produce as much stuff per hour by like 50%. Like it's a significant margin. When I was in the Ranch of the Rockies prior to moving here, I actually had to work out of my spare bedroom, which was, underventilated and super unhealthy and not a great thing to do. But I had to sit down while I was doing that, and I had a lot of difficulty producing the same quantity of work as I do when I'm standing. Lots of glass blowers sit. It is definitely not like we all stand, but I stand, and I guess I've just gotten used to it, so I just kind of do that. But not only do they have that, the really cool thing is the standing chairs, and those are actually something I've considered looking into. All I'm doing is adding a handle to the bottom of this so I can change, so I can this is going to be my new handle. But the standing chairs, I've seen a couple glass blowers where it's literally like right behind you, so you just kind of do this, and you're now sort of sitting, like half sitting. And I feel like that might be kind of like a happy medium between standing and sitting. Right now, all I use is like I'm standing on a salon mat, and holy crap, are they great! Like, don't get me wrong, like these things are the softest foam standing pads I've ever had. I've gone through a few different iterations to arrive at these. They're really great, but it's definitely one of the more irritating issues that I deal with. Is just I'm just standing all day. That's all there is to it. So right now I'm going to pull down, which is going to be, I mean, it's not really a neck. It's more just a constriction in the center of the piece. And now I'm going to melt off this tube. And don't be sorry, Chris, ever. Seriously, like, when people don't ask questions, I just end up sitting here talking to myself for 4 hours, and I kind of wonder if, like, everyone's just sitting here like, man, I'd love it if you just, like, shut up and I could see some glass. So asking questions gives me something to talk about. So thank you. So now I'm going to heat this top section, and I'm going to blow it out a little bit like it was a bowl. Just like that. Let that cool for a second, then I'm going to pop a hole in the top, and that's where we're going to stick our neck. Once that's open, we're going to flare it slightly. Then we're going to add our neck. Now, when I'm adding these, I want to get them all like super hot before I touch them the two together. That way, they pretty much seal right off the bat, and I don't have to spend forever trying to seal them properly. Once they seal, I want to center the piece to my right hand, not my left hand, in case it's off a little bit, and then take off the left hand tube. Now there's a little bit of clear in the middle of my wigwag on the bottom. I want to pluck that out. And now I'm going to flatten my bottom. It's not talking for 4 hours that's the issue. It's talking to myself for 4 hours. Like if I had like a person, I can talk to a random human for, 20 hours straight, no problem. It's just like when I'm totally isolated in my own head and just like, well, I'm just going to talk about whatever pops into my brain. After 4 hours, I wonder if people want me to shut up. Whereas if I'm in person, I don't care if you want me to shut up. That's not relevant. All right, so we're heating this up. I'm going to take it over to the marver and blow and rotate and everything and set it on the marver all at once, and that kind of helps define the bottom. Like that. Then we're going to make a cup. And then press it on the marver again to guarantee that it sits perfectly flat. And now we're going to pop a hole in the side, and that's where the female joint will go and where our down tube will go in. Widen that to accommodate the down tube. And then set that aside. Now we are going to make our female joint. I don't normally do these on air, mainly because I hate doing them. But the right size feels like the right size. So this is a much more precise activity, I guess. So I don't actually get my glass nearly as hot. I want it just hot enough to where it'll move if I move it, but not, it won't move on its own. So I heated this up and covered it in wax. And then we just kind of in and rotate. This is totally not the right size. Try that again. Yeah, okay. That's better. Okay, take two. I accidentally got like 19 millimeter tubing instead of 17 millimeter tubing one time. And it's so close that like when I look at it, I can't really see the difference. And when I hold it, I'm like, well, this feels a little strange. But then as soon as I actually use it, it's like, oh, well, this is clearly completely the wrong size. So we're just going to do this a couple times. And I'm rotating both of them, but I'm rotating my right hand with the reamer faster than I'm rotating my left hand so that it reams it out properly. Now we're going to heat the very edge, let it condense in, and then take the reamer in again. And that defines the edge a little bit. That was just a test to make sure that it was indeed exactly 14 mil. Yeah, so okay, so this is why I don't generally do female joints live. So my reamer was too cold, or my graphite joint holder was too cold. So the second I pushed it into my female joint, it caused my female joint to crack. Normally when I make these, I do them in sets of like 30. So like the first two that I make almost always suck, and then they start to get better. But when I only need one, having the first two suck is quite irritating. Let's try that again. Lost my foot pedal. All right, this one looks like it's going to work. I did a bunch of tutorial videos this morning that are going to be coming out in the next few days. But that meant that I cleaned my bench so that it didn't look terrible. Normally, I leave my my joint holder kind of on the tile underneath my bench, underneath my torch. That way, like while I'm working, it kind of just gets warm. So then whenever I actually need it, it's not freezing cold and I can just start using it. But I cleaned my bench, and so I set things like away from my torch. And of course, last night was actually cold. And to be fair, today's actually cold. So, yeah, issues. There we go. Now I got our female piece. Eventually it just pirate goes. So it takes a second, but it'll pop off your joint holder. All right, so now we're going to make the down tube. My foot pedal's trying to run away. So these down tubes are a little bit longer than the ones that I generally do for my minis. So I have to keep that in mind. Grab the piece we just made. Make sure it goes in. Make sure it's centered. And we just go ahead and seal the hole that we made earlier with the tube. Melt it all in nicely. Blow it out. This thing's driving me nuts. Apparently I can't wear my hat when I'm blowing glass live. I just keep bumping my hat constantly against the mic. Center your down stem. Make sure that it is very, very nice and centered. And then grab your 14 mil female joint you just made. And attach. Right in the center. Make sure that your joint is straight in every direction. And then we got to go around and seal them all. Now, the reason I keep rotating it like this and looking at it from all angles is on the off chance that I overheated it and it's going to move. By rotating it like that, it kind of helps keep it a little bit centered, even if it is moving ever so slightly. And this is most definitely one of those steps you absolutely cannot rush. You have to spend your time and really let the heat soak into each individual spot to ensure that that whole seal, because it's a triple seal. You've got your downstem sealing to your piece, sealing to your female joint. So a seal like that creates a lot of stress, and you really have to make sure you melt the hell out of it so that that stress goes away. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to toss this in the kiln, and then I'm going to do my little spiel of thank you for watching, and then we will take it off and bend the neck. So, thank you for watching. Thanks everyone for joining me. If you want to see pictures of all of these products, I'll be putting those up on my Facebook, Vulcan Glass Art Studio, and on my Instagram at Vulcan Glass Art. I'll try to do a video. I know I've been slacking on actually getting the YouTube videos. I'm not sure if that's like something people love seeing or not. Let me know. So I'm trying to be doing that. Also have been slacking on the tutorial videos, but I got 3 of them done today. So I will be uploading my intro to hollow working series over the next few days. That will cover jars, Christmas ornament, and dishes, and I think like 2 or 3 different coloring techniques throughout all 3 projects. So be sure to check those out when they go up live. I will be doing my next stream on Sunday, and it will probably just be another production style stream. We're in the process of trying to do a digital art show through Champs trade shows. And in order to do that, I have to have a catalog of all my products. So now you get to see me make all my products so that I can get this catalog done and get into this show. So that's kind of what the roadmap, what the game plan is moving forward. So yeah, come check that out. All these pieces are for sale. I have to get them photographed first, but once they're photographed, totally available. So if you saw anything that was particularly cool, you really enjoyed, you want to grab it, go ahead and message me. Yeah, if you want to support the channel further, you can also check us out on Patreon at Vulcan Glass TV. And if you become one of our patrons, I will make you something super pretty and cool on air that I will send to you in appreciation of your supporting Vulcan Glass Art and continuing to make it possible for me to do this content. So yeah, check that out. What else? That's pretty much it. So yeah, I don't know if that's been in the kiln long enough. I want to say that it is, but I don't think that it is. But that's okay. It's clear. It probably won't crack. If it explodes, it's your fault because I'm rushing. All right, so we'll take it out of the kiln. And where's my grabbers? Sweet. Totally didn't crack. So there you have my banger hanger, which was the final project for today. Whew. All right, so that's pretty much it. Again, thank you guys very much for watching. If there's any other kind of content you guys would like to see, go ahead and leave it in the comments, whatever. And yeah, that's it. Hope to see you guys again on Sunday. You have a great night.